Amitabha. So when I was thinking about what to say, I came across this poem a couple of days ago, and in a way, a lot of what I'm saying is a sort of just a series of reflections, really that's coming out of this poem, and it's by Hafiz, who's a 14th century Persian Sufi poet and mystic, and it's called "It Felt Love." How did the rose ever open its heart and give to the world, to this world, all its beauty? It felt the encouragement of light against its being. Otherwise, we all remain too frightened. So that sort of poem stuck with me, and I've sort of been reflecting on it, and I was thinking when I read it, I thought, oh yes, all its beauty. How did the rose give its beauty to the world? And I was thinking that I've heard lots of people's stories. I feel like I'm in a privileged position, and I have been in my life, to hear lots of people's stories of their life and also events in their lives. And and when you hear lots of people's stories, you see the struggles and the aspirations, and I also see a lot of beauty when I'm listening to people's experiences, and that's whether they're close to me or whether they're not. I don't know them very well. So, like even the other day when we were doing communication exercises, and I looked around the room, and you all look really shining and engaged and really intent and really open, and I was very moved by that. I saw beauty, in the room. So, and then, like my mother, for example, who's got dementia, and dementia, as you know, there's a lot of suffering in that, and but when I sit with her, again, I see her beauty. I see her sort of radiance sort of pouring out really often. And it happens when she sings to us. She sings sometimes as a way that she connects. But also when she's just saying thank you. She's very gracious when people do things for her. And I see her beauty that way. So for me, sort of listening to people's lives and their struggles and aspirations sits alongside seeing their beauty. So yes, this line in the poem that says, how did the rose ever open its heart and give to the world all its beauty? It felt the encouragement of light against its being. So it was those words particularly that I was struck by. So I'm going to talk today about light, about infinite light, and I'm also going to talk about love and beauty. And last night we heard about the beauty of Ratnasambhava. That was the beauty of aesthetic appreciation, the beauty of appreciative awareness. The beauty I'm going to be speaking about tonight sort of includes that, but really it's the beauty that comes from love. So I think I've been on a search for beauty. I've been on a search for beauty, and I've been on a search for truth. And my search for beauty really started at the age of 6. I sort of grew up in East End of London, in a very sort of deprived, poor area. And when I tell my story, I always start from this point. I start from, I fell off the climbing frames one day at school. I fell off the climbing frames one day at school, banged my head, and was walking home from school, slightly a bit sort of concussed somehow on one level. But on another level, it woke me up. It woke me up to my environment, and I looked around, and I had a good look. It's almost like the first time I'd really seen where I lived. And I saw graffiti, and I saw a very grey landscape, and I saw people who looked unhappy, miserable, hard expressions, and I also felt hostility. So that's the environment I woke up to. And my immediate response to that was to recoil. I sort of recoiled from the place I was in. I thought, I don't want to be here. I want to be somewhere else. I want to be somewhere beautiful. And I also, and I don't know where this came from, but I also felt I also need to change my name. I didn't feel the name that I had was related to me. I wanted a more beautiful name, and I wanted a name that was more meaningful. So anyway, I was 6, so I wasn't that aspiration. Nothing was going to come of it at 6, and I couldn't articulate that to anyone, of course. So what I did, I sort of plunged into the world of literature and the imagination, and there, in literature, you really encounter people's struggles and a lot of suffering in literature. But the novelist, if they're a really artful, skillful novelist, what they're trying to do is help make sense of that. They're trying to help you make sense of the suffering the characters are going through. So Jana Varcha mentioned War and Peace today, and that's a great example, actually, of this. And there's one scene where one of the characters gets injured, and they're just injured, and they're all with lots of other soldiers who have been injured, and there's screaming going on, and very horrible environment. But that's where he has his revelation about love, about his love for humanity. And it's very, very moving in that context. And then you have one of my favourite authors, Toni Morrison, who's Nobel Prize winning, and she's written, she's an amazing, she died this year actually, but one of her books is Beloved, and it's a really harrowing book. She's talking about post-American Civil War and people's escape and struggles with slavery. And yet she writes about them and their lives in such a poetic, beautiful way that it gives them dignity, it gives them meaning, it gives what they're going through some significance, and it's very, very touching. So literature really definitely provided me with a way to understand or at least experience suffering, but with a context that helped me make sense of it and give beauty to the experience that people were going through. So my imagination was very enriched and fed. And then I also, because I was beginning to understand suffering more and the different ways it manifested in the world, I got involved in social justice as well. And, I really thought I need to help. I need to do something, do my bit to alleviate what I saw as unnecessary suffering. But then, of course, at some point I had to face myself. And because, yes, I wanted to make the world a better place, but I had my own conflicts. I created conflicts. I had my own tensions, my own lack of confidence. And I didn't really know how to deal with it, apart from, having extensive therapy. But that didn't feel like, I didn't actually ever have that. I just didn't feel like that was, I just thought maybe I should do that. But somehow or other, I just didn't know or didn't feel that would necessarily address all the range of issues that I had. So basically, it was, how do I live a life where I can really find peace, actually, with myself and with my relationship to the world, and also know that I'm not going to harm others, through my own actions. How do I stop that kind of behaviour? So this is where sort of meditation comes in, of course, and specifically as well the Metta practice. So the metta practice, as you know, is devised by the historical Buddha. He created that practice as a way for us sort of ordinary folk to, really recognise and understand and transform the suffering in our own hearts and minds. And in that transformation process, access the love, the love that we have that's there, the reservoir of love that actually is there. And also really connect to the sort of common humanity, that we have. So yes, I sort of engaged with the Metta Bhavana, and I could see that it was showing me really getting a real experience of the common humanity, but also the unique ways that every individual, every person that I put in the practice, how they all show up in the world. And that was fascinating. It is fascinating when you begin to, see the differences, between all the various people you put in the practice. And realising over time that, whatever the differences are between you and others, we do share this sort of common humanity. We actually are interdependent of each other, not separate. And yet, because we do show up in so many different ways, there's this mystery. How is it that we can have such deep connection and and really feel this common humanity, all be in the same boat and yet be so different to each other. I found that quite mysterious the more I do the practice. So there's this possibility of the practice, this sort of aspiration of the practice, that we have this sort of dual experience of shared humanity and seeing our uniqueness, really appreciating the uniqueness. But of course, the reality of the practice, and we've been talking about that here, the reality of it is it often brings us down to earth with a bump. And I remember when I was introduced to the practice, and I thought, when there's all these nice, friendly Buddhists doing the practice, and they told me about loving kindness, and I thought, yeah, I could do a bit of that. And I thought, it can't be that hard, really. It sounds really fairly straightforward, I thought. But the first few times I did the practice, I really did have a very strong sense of, wow, gosh, this is so rich and so beautiful and so vast, and especially that final stage, I really sort of had that sense. But then after doing it more and more, of course, at some point, you come down to earth with a bang if you're up there beforehand, and basically, one begins to experience one's ordinary mind, and there's boredom, there's indifference. I'm going to do a whole list. Let me do the list for you. Judgment, meanness, resentment, ill will, of course, hatred, anger, the repetitive mind that just goes on, that craves, that thinks about the dessert we had tonight, or the roast potatoes was the thing tonight, and hoping there's going to be dessert again tomorrow, that mind. The mind that just looks at what you want and what you don't want, and what you have and what you don't have. The mind that just wants to stay on the surface of experience and doesn't want to engage in the practice, waiting for the bell. And then you get the double whammy, I call it, where that's all going on, all those things might be going on, and then you get the critical mind that comes in and has a go at you for thinking and feeling all those things. So, and it's just, that is suffering. That is suffering. Particularly then when we go into, well, I can't do the practice, I'm not good enough, I'm doing it wrong, maybe I'm not a kind person or loving person after all. But actually I see those states as opportunities. I see when we're in those repetitive and negative states, there are all opportunities. Because when we're in those states, if we can be aware of them, we're actually experiencing and getting a direct experience of the Buddha's first teaching. So the Buddha, I always think it's amazing that the Buddha, had this incredible experience of enlightenment, mystical experience. He transcended life and death, saw the meaning of the universe, and his first teaching after that, incredible experience, undescribable, was to teach us about suffering, was to tell us life is suffering. He could have spoken about anything. He could have spoken about time and space and karma and rebirth and all these other really, mystical experiences, psychic development. He could have talked about lots of things, but he chose to talk to us about that, told us that life is suffering. So when he says that, he's talking about the big things, death and sickness and all those things, but he's also talking about that ordinary mind, that mind that just never gets settled, that mind that keeps wanting, the mind that keeps judging, the mind that feels really separate between us and other people. He's also talking about that. So if we can, in the practice, if we can go, rather than like, here I am again, I shouldn't be feeling this, why am I not feeling metta, this is what I should be doing, but here I am. If we can actually go, this irritation, this is suffering. And if we can actually, as we've been talking about today, sort of connect in with that, feel that, we're actually getting a direct experience of the Buddha's first teaching, the noble truth, life is suffering. And then, you see, if we sort of can rest there, then we can think, and because the next bit of the teaching, of course, is life is suffering, it's unsatisfactory, it's unfulfilling, and there's a way out. There's a path leading out. So experiencing that first helps you get to the next stage, which is, okay, let's get curious then about the way out, which is not pushing it away or denying it, it's something else. So, yes, and we heard the other night. So anyway, actually the Buddhist answer to that way out is very simple. And we heard Paramabandhu was saying that, hatred is never, this is a Buddhist teaching again, hatred has never ceased by hatred, it's only ceased by love. That's the eternal law. Well, hatred is a form of suffering. So suffering is only alleviated by love. So those states are alleviated by love, and a love that's infused with awareness. So I want us now to take in the shrine, the beautiful shrine. And I was very affected by it when I stood quite close to it earlier when I was saluting. Very affected by the light that was being reflected off the shrine. And there's lots of light. There's light that's in the backdrop there. There's a light from the candles. There's a light from the cloth. There's lots of light on the shrine. And there's also, obviously, the figure of Amitabha. And there are these peacocks as well. So I'm going to talk about Amitabha. So Amitabha is the Buddha of infinite light. And, as you can see, he's deep red in colour. He sits coursing in meditation. His hands are in a meditation mudra. So if you do that sort of mudra, that gesture, which is just like this, your sort of thumbs are lightly touching. And if you sort of have it at your centre of your being, and you sort of breathe into it, it can just produce quite an immediate effect of feeling more centred. And in a way, that's what he's doing. Actually, this mudra as well is about balance, and it's about bringing together opposites, the union of opposites. So Amitabha sometimes sits above this calm, vast, deep ocean, and there's often a setting sun in the background, and the setting sun, the light reflects on the water, so lots of light. And he resides in a realm called Sukhavati, the Pure Land. And in Sukhavati, everything reflects beauty. Everything reflects beauty. And his red is radiant red, like the sun. And it's a red that's deeply attractive. So you can think of all the kind of rich, warm colours that you just feel drawn to. So I had a series of images when I was thinking about this. And as you're drawn to these colours, you sort of relax. You're very engaged. You're sort of, you're very emotionally engaged, and you also feel very deeply centred at the same time. So these were my images, but you might have your own. So yes, we've got the obvious one of the fire, the warm fire that you can, that just draws you in. If you go into a room where there's a warm fire, you just automatically want to sit next to it, even for a few moments. It's the red blaze of the sun as it sets in the sky, it lights up the whole sky. I was in Spain a couple of years ago. We have a retreat centre in Spain for women who are getting ordained, and it sits on a sort of cliff mountain top, really, this retreat centre. And every night there was this incredible sunset. And in the end, it was like, I thought, there's no cinematic experience that's going to be better than this. And we would get our deck chairs and we'd just sit there, as if you would normally, like, okay, put the TV on. We would just all get our chairs with a cup of tea and watch the sunset. And it was quite incredible. It was like this great drama was unfolding before us. And there'd be reds and oranges and yellows and golds, and you just watch it dynamically sort of unfolding and having this effect on the whole landscape and on us as we watched it. And then it would just gradually disappear into the night sky, and it was just magical, really. It's the red of the experienced flamenco dancer. She came to mind. And she doesn't have to move very much, this dancer. She just has an effect in these really subtle ways. She's totally poised. She can see what's needed. She's deeply in tune with the rhythms. And she moves from this depth of stillness and maintains connection throughout. And it's the red of the rose in the poem that gives its beauty to the world, with its petals really soft and delicate, and it keeps open even no matter what the weather is, whether it's rain or sun, these delicate petals still stay open. It's the warmth you get from communication, meaningful communication, and the affirmation you feel when you're met by another person. And it's the blush, the glow you get from simple tenderness and unexpected kindness. So Amitabha's love is an all-embracing love, but a love that can meet suffering in all its forms. It meets the parts of ourselves that feel rejected or have been rejected, or feel unloved, or feel unworthy. It meets the parts of ourselves that are harsh and critical. And it's a love that's very deep and strong, and it's soothing and opening, and yet it can respond to all sorts of situations. And when we're met by this form of love and care and warmth, well, in a way, we don't have to do very much. We just gradually open up. We find ourselves wanting to share ourselves. We find ourselves wanting to be honest about our experience. We find our defences just dissolving. And in that dissolving of those defences, in wanting to open up, a space begins to emerge where kindness can come in. So yes, as we've been saying, we need to acknowledge our suffering, whatever form it's happening in, our sort of discomfort, our lack of satisfactoriness. We need to acknowledge that, and then respond with warmth and care and sensitivity. And this is what Amitabha reminds us of, the importance of doing that. But it takes courage. It can take courage and patience to look at our states of suffering. And in a way, that the poem also, that I read at the beginning, it also acknowledges that. Because it says, the rose, it felt the encouragement of light against its being. Otherwise, we all remain too frightened. And we heard an echo of that in the poem that you read earlier, Nanavach, as well. So it takes courage to face one's emotions. It takes courage to explore one's depth. And we need, therefore, encouragement and an encouragement of light to do so. And the reason we fear, or it takes that courage, is because we don't know what's going to happen often. Particularly if you've been sitting with a certain pattern of behaving or thinking. We don't know, actually, if I sit with this, what's going to happen? There's an instant fear of what the other side of this facing it's going to be. And I know people sometimes say to me, what if I start crying and I can't stop? What if I fall apart? I'll be embarrassed. I won't be able to bring myself together again. What if I discover something about myself that I really can't bear? So there's a lot I could say about this, but there's just a few things I could say for now. But from a Buddhist perspective, those sort of negative emotions are not who we are not who we really are. But we think they sort of are because we are familiar with them often, and we identify with them. we think that's how I am, you know. So when somebody does this, somebody's critical of me, I do this. I'll get defensive, I'll shut down, I'll attack back, whatever it is. So we sort of very familiar with those states, and then we identify with them. So they become part of who we think we are. And so then looking to shift that, change that, becomes actually almost threatening to our sense of ourself. But from a Buddhist point of view, they're not who we really are. From a Buddhist point of view, who we are intrinsically, our actual nature, the nature of our mind, the nature of our heart is love and awareness. Love infused with awareness. That's what Buddhism says. That's what's really going on in terms of who we are. But we don't, and the image that's sort of often used to describe this is that our mind is like this clear, bright, pristine, radiant sky. Yeah, where everything is seen in its warmth. The sunlight produces warmth in that blue sky. But then we have all these emotions and states and patterns of behaviour that are like the clouds. And sometimes those clouds are just there for, it feels like forever. And they can form like this film of grey that you sort of don't know what's beneath that sky. Or every now and again there's a clearing. Every now and again you see this blue sky, this penetrating sky, but then it covers up again. And in a way that's what happens when we meditate. Every now and again you'll feel this deep calm and clarity, and then it gets covered over. But just knowing or having that understanding that actually our intrinsic nature is that sky and it's just obscured, that can help us sort of stay with the practice and keep that courage to just keep staying with whatever's happening, whatever the landscape happens to be. And the other thing about it, which goes back to the shrine with the peacocks, you got these peacocks on the shrine, and peacocks apparently represent they swallow poisonous snakes, and they swallow the poisonous snakes, but the snakes don't harm them. In fact, it nourishes them. They obviously enjoy eating these poisonous snakes, and I found that's quite interesting when you think about what we need to do in practice, in that we're encouraging you to recognise and get familiar with your sort of ordinary mind, your states of suffering, so that you can see through their nature and see your nature, which is love and awareness. So in a way, that for me says that our negative aspects of ourselves, which we fear quite a lot or so much, if we do get to grips with them, if we do understand them and no longer afraid of them, then actually what it's doing is opening us up. Yeah, it's giving us strength. Where if you're no longer afraid of something, like the dreams where you're sort of running from the monster the whole time, and then at some point somebody says, just look, stop running and look, and then you look and you think, oh, what was I running from? Yeah, that gives you strength, that gives you confidence. So learning to deal with our emotional states, our negative states, our states of suffering actually gives us confidence and strength. So that's one thing about metta and love, is that it's strong. It's strong, it's deep, it enables us to cope with all kinds of manners of things that can show up in our lives and be able to help respond to others. But we do need the encouragement of light. We do need that encouragement of light. And so this courage that we need, we have to build that up. It doesn't come, necessarily naturally. We have to build that courage up. And we build that courage up by giving ourselves opportunities, really, putting ourselves in conditions where we can access that light. So, for example, we're all on retreat. So in a way, we've had lots of opportunities for that light to come through, lots of opportunity where we can be encouraged to keep staying with our experience. We have our friends who share our values, who are encouraging us to grow. The teachings, just remembering one Buddhist teaching can make a difference. You know, like if you're really annoyed with somebody and you're thinking, right, I'm going to get back at them and I'm going to do it like this. And suddenly you remember, or it comes to mind, hatred is never ceased by hatred. Hatred is, oh, it's happened to me. Hatred is only ceased by love. You know, then at least I'm stopped. I'm like, okay, is that true? What about what I was about to do? You know, and then at least I get curious. Is there another way I can respond to this situation? Walking in nature gives us the opportunity of light. There's been many a time when somehow something I've seen in nature has really helped me deal with a situation I'm in. And you might have had that experience here as well. And of course, meditating and keep coming back to our experience again and again gives us access, opportunity of that light to come through. So we need to create the conditions, build the conditions, put ourselves in the conditions where we can get that encouragement. And that light might be a tiny chink. It might be just a little flash, but that little flash is enough to meet that gap that's appeared between our suffering and our awareness. This is suffering. So you have Leonard Cohen's famous song, The Anthem. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There's a crack in everything. That's where the light gets in. So, yeah. So Amitabha sits in that meditation position, this faint smile, deep smile that goes in, deep, red, deeply compassionate, and he reminds us of the light, infinite light that's ready, waiting for us to receive. But we still have to actively choose love. It's a bit like, well, okay, hatred doesn't cease by hatred. Do I go do what I was planning on doing? Or do I actually get curious about another way of responding? So we have to actively choose love if we want to sort of experience that warmth, that kindness. So I'm going to share a dream with you I had a few years ago. And I'll just say it. So in this dream, I'm walking across a bridge. It's a wooden low bridge, and it's long and it stretches far in the distance. And it's really cold, and I'm rather tense. So I'm looking ahead at the bridge, at this long bridge, and there's this grey sky. So long bridge, cold, tense, and a monotonous grey sky. And this bridge seems like it goes on forever. It's like it doesn't seem like, I can't see the end point of this bridge. But anyway, I'm walking across the bridge, and I'm walking, and then suddenly, and I'm looking in a certain direction as well, and then suddenly I feel there's like this pain in my neck. And I sort of ignore it to begin with, because I've got to get to the end of this bridge, although I don't know where the end of this bridge is. So I ignore it and I keep walking, but every now and again the pain keeps coming back. And I just think, why have I got that pain? And what can I do about it? And there's nothing I can do about it, so I just keep walking. But then every now and again, I'm just feeling like the cold, the grey, the bridge that doesn't have an end, the pain in my neck. I ignore it, it goes away, it comes back again. It's just repeating and repeating this same process. And then every now and again I think, it's not so bad, the pain. I can probably live with it. And then it comes back. And then, at some point I think, is this it? Am I just going to is this it? The walking, the not knowing where I'm really going, the grey sky, the cold, and this intermittent pain. Is this all there is? There has to be more than this. And then I hear a voice, and it's very calm. It's a very calm voice. It's very clear, and all it says is, "Turn to the right." And I'm like, there's a right? Because I'm looking at the left. It's a completely new idea, concept. So I ignore it, and I carry on walking. I just think, well, I don't know what that was, that voice. I'm used to walking. I need to keep walking. And it's okay. Actually, what I'm doing is fine. And then the pain comes back. Then the voice comes again. It's still calm. It's still warm. In fact, it's a very encouraging voice. Turn to the right. And I hesitate. Well, what happens if what's going to happen if I turn to the right? Will it be different to the left? I'm not actually sure it's what I want. We'll have to give up the left. We'll have to give up the bridge. What's going to happen to the journey I'm on? It's not actually that bad anyway. So I carry on, and then the pain gets sharp. And it's the same rhythm again and again and again. And then I have to stop again, like, okay, is this it? What's actually happening here? What on the right might ease my pain? And then I realise I'm afraid, because I don't actually know what's going to happen. I'm very used to my journey, even the discomfort of it. I'm very used to it. I just think there's a lot to lose, although I'm not sure what I'm going to lose. So anyway, finally I stop, and I'm with my breath, and I'm just standing there with my breath. And then I turn my head slowly to the right. And then I'm enveloped by this warmth, this blaze of sunlight and golds and oranges, and it's deep and it's rich and it's blissful, and it's calm and it's expansive and it's dynamic, and it goes on and on and on forever. And then when I turn my head again, the bridge is gone. There's no left, there's no right. It's just colour. So I was thinking that the light might come in a tiny chink in the course of your day, or it might come like in the dream for me, that was like a blaze. Because after that dream, I woke up and I was thinking, I just have to choose and always remember that there is this infinite light that is there, that's waiting for me to just turn my head in a different direction, have a different perspective, and be open to something new. So after that dream, I also, I remembered I was meditating, it was a while after that dream, I was meditating on this figure. And I was definitely meeting some resistance to practice, some sort of old patterns. And I was really staying with it, really thinking I knew it was important, me staying with this experience. And I was really, by the end of the practice anyway, I was just like, I've got somewhere. I really felt a shift. And at the end, when you sit and absorb in the experience of your meditation, it's been a very deep one. There's a bit of me that's like, that was really profound, or really significant at least. And as I was feeling that, I then had this tune in my head, and it was like this pop song. And I couldn't reconcile the two things, because I thought, on the one hand, I'm really absorbing my experience, and I've got this tune. So part of me wanted to just be with the meditation, then part of me just wanted to kind of, start dancing. And I was like, why have I got this tune going around in my head? And then I thought, okay, let's get interested in why this tune has appeared right at the end of my meditation practice. And it was Bob Marley. And it had the lyrics of, in this life, in this life, in this life, in this oh sweet life, I'm coming in from the cold. So I was like, oh, okay. I get the message. And then I wanted to go back to my absorbed meditative feeling. I thought, okay, I got the message of that, let's get back to it. And then as I did that, and then the next bit of lyrics started popping up. It's you I'm talking to. So I was like, okay. So it really made me think, oh, that's I'm coming in from the cold. I'm coming in from the cold. I'm coming in from the cold of criticism and feeling rejected. I'm coming in from the cold where I shut out my own heart, closed my own heart. I'm coming in from the cold of loneliness and separation, lack of connection. Coming in from the cold of superficial communication, from bleak, sterile environments. And actually coming in from the cold and into the warmth of community and friendship, and into the warmth of care for oneself, into arts and colour and life, and into teachings that actually strengthen my connection with my fellow human being. So yes, I think we can sort of connect to this quality of love in all different ways. And one of the favourite things I love to do is gaze, of course, at the setting sun. And I'm just going to finish now, but I remember I used to go on retreats. We used to have these retreats, very small retreats, maybe just 6 of us, order members and women, and we were all practicing this particular practice. So we'd come together, and our retreats were really fun, because you have retreats where you get up 5 in the morning and you meditate for 10 hours a day, and it's really full on and austere and all the rest of it. But we weren't like that, because we're Amitabha, practitioners. And our retreats, we'd get up at a leisurely time in the morning, we'd meditate, we'd have a lovely breakfast, and then we'd do a bit of study, and then we'd have a really delicious lunch, sort of pick and mix lunch, and we'd all really enjoy what was on the table for food, and then we'd meditate a bit more in the afternoon, and then we'd wait for the sunset, and then we'd all go out and watch the setting sun, which was lovely. And then the evenings, we'd then have a fire and roast marshmallows and toast around the fire. And there was lots of laughter, and I would always think, this is so easy. It's just so easy being here, so relaxed, and And then I'd go home, and I'd notice that retreat had such a strong effect on me. So this was really interesting, that actually with this kind of love and warmth and relaxation, you don't feel necessarily you're making. You might need courage. You might need to be open to the light coming in. Yes. But it doesn't feel you're having to work hard. It's just happening as you're relaxing, as you're opening up. And then when I got pregnant, I would carry on going on those retreats. And I remember, we'd do the pujas in the evening. That's how we ended. We had a wonderful puja to Amitabha at the evening. And I remember it was during the pujas that my belly, my baby, unborn baby, would be quiet the whole day. And then in the puja with the mantra, I would just be really going mad. And we all really loved that. They'd all kind of they'd say, is he moving? I'm like, yes, he's moving. It was great. Interestingly, and one of the reasons I'm sharing that is because of the power of mantra. And we'll do the mantra this evening. Because when he, as he was about 18 months, 2 years old, he had an accident one day. He pulled some hot milk on him, and he was obviously completely, unconsolable. And I couldn't, whatever I was, I had to call, we had to take him to hospital and things like that. And I was waiting for transport, and I was just really in what am I going to do? I need to calm him down, because that was even, that was also stressful. And then I began to chant the Amitabha mantra, and immediately he was quiet. It was quite amazing. And so we had this thing in our family that, if he was upset or hurt, we would do the Amitabha mantra, and he'd be immediately relaxed. So, how did the rose ever open its heart and give to the world all its beauty? It felt the encouragement of light against its being. Otherwise, we all remain too frightened. So Amitabha is there reminding us of that encouragement of light that is always there, and we just have to be open and allow it in, and allow it to touch us, and allow us to soften and be in its presence. So thank you.